Hello friends, welcome to Kavita's classroom. Let's again begin with a sample paper discussion. This is sample paper 2 of macroeconomics. Now that we are well comfortable with the pattern of the paper, let's begin straight away from question number 1, section A, macroeconomics. The monetary policy is formulated by the dash in Indian economy, central government, state government, Reserve Bank of India, and World Bank. Yes, your guess is right. It is Reserve Bank of India. Identify which of the following is not to be considered while estimating revenue deficit of a country. See, revenue deficit, right? So we'll talk about something which relates to capital assets or liability here in this question. Wages and salaries are revenue in nature. Interest is revenue in nature. Direct tax again is revenue in nature. Expenditure on construction of flyover. Yes, this is not revenue deficit related, right? Now, in Keynesian economics, dash starts from the origin and is always drawn at an angle of 45. What is that? That is AS curve. But are you able to see the AS curve written here? No. So there would be something other than AS. That is the reference line, we say. AS is also called the reference line. Why do we say so? Because AS moves this way, and at every point the vertical and the horizontal distance is the same in AS. That's why we say it's the reference line, right? Moving ahead, the fourth question says, assertion is, in case of public goods, no one can be excluded from enjoying the benefits. Yes, true. Public goods are non-rivalrous and non-excludable. Again, that is true, and that is the reason of the first statement as well. So the answer is A. In the previous, are you able to recall, in our previous paper, the non-words were not there. And this way, they tried to just fiddle up with your vocab. Okay, so now it is true, and the answer is given in the reason. Next question. Value addition is equal to dash minus value of intermediate consumption. We know this is value of output, right? So we have to see it's a combination question. So value of output is clearly given. What else? How do we say which is the value of output? Domestic sales? No, it has to be sales altogether, domestic as well as the total component of sales. Exports also has to be added here. So this is not there. Sales minus change in stock is never there. The formula is mistaken. It's sales plus change in stock if it is an old form. So this is wrong. So next is number of units reduced into price per unit. Yes, this is sales. But students will say, ma'am, what about add in stock? The change in stock? Right, maybe it's a new organization and there is no change in stock. So this is also valid. So my answer is third and fourth option. And here we go with option D. Now, suppose for an economy, autonomous consumption stands at 100 crore rupees. Total consumption is 130 crores. What is the value of induced consumption? Let's write the formula. C is equal to C bar plus BY. So do you know this is autonomous, but this is what? This is called induced consumption. Autonomous means which is independent of income, but which is dependent on income is called induced. So these two together make C, and together it is making 130. One component is 100. So what is going to be the other component? That's going to be 30. Okay. So this is the right answer. Then we have, as the banker to bank, the Reserve Bank of India performs all functions except, now let us see, purchase and sale of securities on behalf of general public. RBI never works on behalf of general public. So this is mistaken. So we have got our answer. Still, we should be reading all the parts. Maintaining current account for commercial banks, yes. Clearing and settling of interbank transactions, yes. And facilitating government transactions, yes. So A is the right answer here. Moving ahead, Again, assertion reasoning question. If the value of MPS is 0.5, the MPC will be equal to MPS. We know that sum of these two make 1. So if one is half, the other would also be half, right? If one is 0.5, the other would also be 0.5 to make it 1. So this is correct that here in this very special case, MPC is again going to be 0.5. Sum of MPC and MPS always equals to unity. Yes, this is the reason which I said. So this is true, and both are reason. This is reason to the assertion. My answer is A here. The budget under which the government may spend an amount equal to the revenue is referred to as dash budget. Read it once again. Spending equals the revenue means whatever is the resource pool, you are spending that only. So it is a balanced budget, not the surplus, not the deficit, not the deflationary. Now, to arrive at the value of equilibrium level of income, there must exist an equality between ex ante. What is it? We have ex ante savings and ex ante investments. Yes, we do have equilibrium at AD equals AS. Right. Aggregate demand and savings, no, that's wrong. Aggregate demand and investments, that again is wrong. Just a weird combination they're trying to give you. So answer has to be a combination of 1 and 4, and this comes out to be B here. Now, what's next? State the meaning and significance of GDP deflator. What is the meaning and significance? GDP deflator is a tool which is equal to nominal GDP by nominal income or nominal GDP by real income or real GDP into 100. So you can give the formula expression and you may say that what is it? GDP is a tool which helps to alleviate the impact of inflation on the production. So it gives the real inflation, the real worth of production or the national income of any economy, right? So the next question is, here the government generally levies higher GST on socially undesirable products like cigarettes, tobacco, liquor, etc. Identify and explain the indicated government budget objective. So what have we read? Through this, what government is trying to do? Government is trying to curb on these socially undesirable products by increasing the prices. So this way it will add to its revenue pool. Its revenue would also increase. And again, because the demand would be cut down, so government can redirect its resources to the production of some desirable products, right? So it is a matter of reallocation of resources. So reallocation of resources is the objective of the government. And the hidden aspects are, yes, to curb on the socially undesirable products. Now, the or section says you have to do one out of these two given questions. Two friends, Ramesh, a software engineer, and Pihu, a bakery owner. So he's working for somebody else and she is working for her own self, owner, right? Are discussing their contribution to nation's economy through tax payments. Ramesh earns 8 lakhs per month, which makes him liable to pay income tax, and Pihu pays GST on sale of cakes and pastries. In this given case study, identify whether Ramesh is paying a direct or indirect tax. Who is Ramesh? Ramesh is the software engineer working for a company and paying income tax. So he is paying the direct tax. Explain the valid differences between two. You can give any. That you can talk about the shifting of burden. You can talk about which is, on goods and services, which is on the wealth, right, and income and all. So all these, any valid question, any valid statement or difference can be given. Then we have third picture-based question. On the basis of the given picture, explain the steps which may be taken by the government to control the indicated macroeconomic issue. And you are not to see, it's clearly written here, it's inflation. right? So we have monetary tools, fiscal tools, but here the government can take any, yes. So you can talk about repo rate, reverse repo rate, right? CRR, SLR, or you can talk about bank rate, open market operations, anything can be talked about. And in inflation, these rates are always risen or increased. With increase, right, it becomes, all these loan and the availability of money becomes expensive for the people, and hence the loans are curbed, and hence the inflation is controlled because the money supply is restricted with this move, right? Then open market operations means sale and purchase of government securities by the commercial bank, right? So when we talk about this, we have you may just define it, and you can talk about, in case of inflation, what do we do? When inflation is there, we need to control the purchasing capacity of the people. So if we need to have their money with us, so the securities are sold so that securities go with them and their money is there with the government or the banks. So this way you can talk about how open market operations also are used for curbing inflation. Again, as I told you previously also, for every question which carries any picture, that would have a question followed for the visually impaired. You are not to do that. We are just discussing for better clarity of the question. Right. Explain any one fiscal policy measure. So if here you are giving any sort of banking measure, your question becomes altogether wrong. Fiscal measure means you have to talk about the taxes, you have to talk about government spending, subsidies. So all these would be talked about here, right? Which can be taken up to control the situation of inflation. Inflation, we try to increase the taxes so that money supply is less with the people, and hence the inflation is curbed. Define open market operations. We have already done this. Moving to the next question, 14th A. Justify the following statements with valid arguments. Money supply in an economy is an example of stock variable. Yes, because money supply is calculated at a point of time, right? So it's a stock variable. Central bank provides several banking services to the government. So you can talk about any one, two services which the central bank does for the government. It's a supervisor, it's the, it works as agent, it receives the money, it gives loan to the government, right? So there are a number of things which we can talk about. The or question says, assuming for a hypothetical economy, central bank increases the reserve ratio from 20 to 25%, and the total primary deposits stand at 1,000. Explain the effect of rise in reserve ratio on credit creation. Right. So we'll talk about case 1 and case 2. In case A, we have this reserve ratio as 20%, right? And here it is 25%. So the money multiplication would be 1 by reserve ratio. So 1 by 20% would help you with 100 by 20, that is 5. And here it's going to be 4, right? So what are the total deposits? Total deposits are the primary deposit into the money multiplier, that is 5,000. And here it becomes 1,000 into 4, that's equal to 4,000, right? So they say credit creation is reduced when the RR is increased, right? So here we say there is opposite relation or the inverse relation between RR, the reserve requirement, and the total deposits created in the economy, right? So this, mind you, for this 4 marks, there is a hidden marking of 3 plus 1, wherein 3 marks would be given for this calculation aspect and 1 mark would be reserved for your interpretation of the question. As they say, explain the effect. So explanation at last is required, that there exists inverse relationship between the two. Moving ahead, We have 15th question. Suppose for an economy, government proposes project for construction of expressways with an incremental investment of 1200 crores. So incremental investment means we have delta Y to be equal to 1200 crore rupees. Assuming 80% of increase in income is spent on consumption, what is given to us? We are given MPC is 0.8 with the statement. Calculate delta Y and delta C. We know when MPC is 0.8, so MPS would become 0.2 and hence the K would be 1 by 0.2. You will write MPS. So 1 by 0.2, that is 10 by 2, that's equal to 5. Right. So if K is 5, we do know what is K. K is equal to delta Y by delta I. Right? So what are we given? Incremental investment. I'm sorry, this was delta I given, not delta Y. Investment was given. I misunderstood to be delta Y. So delta Y is 1200. Delta I is 1200. So put this value here. What are we left with? Delta Y would be equal to 5 into delta I, and that's equal to 5 into 1200. 12 5 is 60. We are left with 6,000 rupees crore as delta Y. And then delta C, we know MPC is equal to delta C by delta Y. MPC here is given to be 0.8 and delta C is to be found and delta Y is 6,000. So multiply this and you would get 4,800 as delta C. Do remember to write the units, rupees and crores. We're done with this. Moving ahead for the next question, on the basis of the following data, find NNP at FC. Let us see which is the method required here. We are given the consumption expenditure, investment expenditure, government expenditure. So it's a clear question of expenditure method. Now, expenditure method gives us GDP at MP. So you must write the formulas. I'm simply straight away giving the components. First is the private final consumption expenditure, then is the government final consumption expenditure, then gross domestic capital formation is there, but here they have broken it into two parts because fixed word is there. So it means I need to look for the addition in stocks, that is 400 plus net exports, and net exports are 700. So when you add this up, what would you be having? 7 and 4, 11 plus 5, 16, carry 1. And we are here having rupees 5,600 crores as GDP-MP. Let me check it once again. Yes. So now what is to be found? It is NNPFC from GDP-MP. How do we do it? Minus depreciation makes it N. Add NFIA makes this DN. And then minus NIT will make it FC. So we have many, big calculation here. So GDP-MP is 5,600. What are we required to do? Minus depreciation. Depreciation is consumption of fixed capital, that is 50. Then we have add NFIA. NFIA is net factor income from abroad, clearly given. Had it been to abroad, we would have used the other symbol. So it's not to be used otherwise. It's clearly given. And then minus NIT. NIT is given 200. So what do we need to do? 250 are for minus and 100 is for plus. So it means 150 we simply subtract from here, and that would be 5,450. Yes, this would be the answer. I hope the steps are clear to you. Moving ahead to the next question. Gohar has recently completed her fashion designing studies and started a boutique. To produce dresses for sale, she purchases various materials, including sewing machine, fabric, buttons, and thread. These items are essential for producing the dresses. Classify the material purchased. So what has she purchased? These 4 items as final or intermediate goods. See, sewing machine is the investment for the organization. It becomes final good. And because fabric, buttons, and threads would be required to make the final product, that is the, dress, right? So these are intermediate, right? Giving valid support, you can just give that explanation. Then we have national income is always equal to domestic income in a 2-sector economy, defend or refute. I told you before as well. In such cases, the very first statement from your end should be the given statement is defended. It means you have to give your stand, whether it is defended or refuted. If it is not given, you may lose some marks, right? Now let's go ahead. Why is it defended? National income is always equal to domestic income. What's the relationship between domestic and national? We know domestic plus NFIA gives you national income, right? Domestic income. NFIA means net factor income from abroad. But if it is a 2-sector economy, it means it's a closed economy. It means there is no income coming from abroad. And hence, we will say this is a closed economy. There is no factor income which comes from abroad. In this case, domestic income is nothing but the national income, right? Moving ahead, we have 17th, a case study given, and it is simply a content of BOP chapter, clearly, where BOP definition is given, the accounts are given, the subparts of accounts are given, the capital account, the current account, everything. So the questions are define balance of payment. In the very beginning, we know it's a systematic record of all the economic transactions which happen between the residents of the country and the rest of the world in a period of 1 financial year. You can write down. Differentiate between 2 accounts, balance of payments. So you can give any 2 because it's awarded 3 marks. So you must give 3 differences between the 2 accounts of balance of payments, means current account and capital account. You can talk about the asset and liability aspect. You can talk about the component and all. One shows the current account talks about the income aspect and the capital account talks about the wealth aspect. So these things can be given. And then give the meaning of balance of payment, deficit with formula. When we talk about deficit, what is it? Deficit means when all the autonomous components means all the components of current account and the capital account, but for reserves like lending and borrowing and investments. So those are autonomous components. So when we say when autonomous inflows, and now we are to talk about the deficit, it means inflows are lesser than the autonomous outflows. Means more of the foreign exchange is going out and less is received, and hence the deficit situation is arrived at. I hope the things are clear to you. The paper discussion was useful for you. So see you in the next paper discussion. Till then, work hard, study hard. See ya. Bye-bye.